Powered by Riverside FM.
Powered by Riverside.
Welcome to the UP. Another great episode. Hit that like and subscribe button. The Minnesota Timberwolves have forced a Game 7. I didn't see it. I didn't see it at all. I called it. I said the Minnesota Timberwolves probably wouldn't win another game. I had lost faith. I was a fair weather fan, as some called me. But you have to admit, after game 3 and 4, there wasn't much light at the end of the tunnel. And then they came home to Denver, won that game. So I really didn't see any signs of life from the Minnesota Timberwolves, but they forced a Game 7. And Game 7 is on Sunday. And the Minnesota Timberwolves have an opportunity to be that team. Oh, they are so close. They're so close to getting to the NBA Finals, because I honestly believe whoever comes out of this series, not that the next series won't be tough, but I think the Minnesota Timberwolves or the Denver Nuggets are better than OKC and Dallas. And it looks like Dallas has the leg up in that series. Their tough matchup. Luka Doncic is balling. Kyrie Irving is balling. Tim Hardaway Jr. is balling. So it seems like Dallas, they have a pretty good chance of winning that series. And if the Minnesota Timberwolves do their job tomorrow, then you've got a really good matchup for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Anthony Edwards has been talked about in a lot of circles in the same realm as Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant. Stephen A. Smith said an interesting thing, and I rarely ever agree with Stephen A. Smith, let me tell you. But I agreed with him, as he said on NBA Countdown, I believe it was. He said, we've been comparing Anthony Edwards to Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. Well, Sunday, we know what those guys do in Game 7. Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan, they have resumes when it comes to Game 7. So if you're going to talk the talk, you've got to walk the walk. And credit to Anthony Edwards. He says, don't put me in the same category as Michael Jordan. The guy is humble. He knows the greatness of Michael Jordan, but yet he can't control what other people say about him and what categories they put him in. And so far, they've been putting him in the same category as Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan. So tomorrow in Game 7, you've got to be that dude. That's what Stephen A. Smith said. You can't be that dude for 82 games. And then in the first round of the playoffs, and when you get to a Game 7, you don't show up. So at the least, you've got to show up. Jokic, Anthony Edwards fighting for greatness tomorrow. Because I guarantee you on the Denver side of things, they're looking at Jokic and say, hey, you can't be the Jokic in Game 6. We need the Jokic that was in Game 3, 4, and 5. This is what legacy and this is what greatness is all about. Minnesota fans, we've been in this situation before. We've been shown glimmers of possible special seasons. You know, when I moved from Cleveland to Minnesota to attend the University of Minnesota, I walked into a very special thing. That was the Minnesota Twins going to the World Series. I'd never seen anything like that. The city was abuzz. I'm from Cleveland, and so at the time, the name of the team, Cleveland Indians, now the Cleveland Guardians, we didn't sniff a whole lot of baseball success. But I walked into it, and I saw how special that city can be. And really, after that, there really hasn't been anything other than the Minnesota Lynx. And by the way, the Minnesota Lynx had a dynasty, and it's real amazing to me how sometimes I feel like on the sports scene in Minnesota, they kind of put on the back burner. Credit to the Minnesota Lynx. They had a dynasty going for a while. And I believe they're going to get back to that. They're building a really, really special team. But this is the Timberwolves' time right now. And they have a chance to galvanize a city. I mean, they already have, but man, can you imagine making it to the Western Conference Finals while beating the reigning world champions and Jokic? What that would do for your franchise? I think that would probably erase anything that KG, Sprewell, and Cassell really accomplished. And I'm not downgrading them or trying to take anything away from them. I just think, man, this is just a special time to beat the world champs. We've got that opportunity on Sunday. Special time. I think in the Minneapolis area, it's always been, no matter how good or how bad the Vikings are, in Minneapolis, it's a Vikings town. What happens if the Minnesota Timberwolves win a championship with a young 22-year-old Anthony Edwards who is under contract for years to come? I mean, you can start putting them in the categories of Kirby Puckett, Kevin Garnett, Chris Carter, Randy Moss, you name it, on and on and on. The athletic gods of Minneapolis. Kent Herbeck, Chuck Knobloch, those type of guys. Anthony Edwards is now in that fraternity. And it's all about Sunday. Like, the worst thing that can happen for the Minnesota Timberwolves, both teams are going to be fighting. And, of course, I would love for them to win. But if you have to lose, there's just a way that you have to lose. It can't be how you played in games 3 and 4 where you were thoroughly dominated and guys didn't show up. Like, you got to show up. You got to show up. If you lose, you got to show up. Anthony Edwards, you are the best player on our team. You just got to show up. Rudy Gobert, you got to show up. Big Cat, who played an awesome game. Stats may not support that he played a fantastic game, but he did a really, really good job of facilitating and guarding Jokic one-on-one. Had 10 points, but Big Cat, we need more tomorrow. I think the coaching matchup is equal. I love Finchie. Finchie makes great adjustments. I am really disappointed that this patella tendon injury happened to him because he needs to be on the sidelines. He needs quick adjustments. And taking away nothing from his head assistant is just not the same. Finchie alluded to it's tough. He's got to let his head assistant coach because he can't make adjustments and calls from where he's sitting fast enough. And he tried it the first couple of games, but it just didn't work. So here's where he has to trust his coaching staff. Give them certain elements during the game that they could talk to the team at halftime. You saw Finchie talking to guys as they came back to the bench, whispering in their ear. That's what his role is relegated to. So that's a big adjustment for the Timberwolves. Sunday, they also have to be that defensive team that they were in Game 6 and Games 1 or 2. And for me to be able to play that type of defense, it is not about X's and O's. It is not about scheme. Like, you've got that down right now. You know what works and what doesn't work. It's about mindset and effort. mindset, and effort. So if I'm the Minnesota Timberwolves coaching staff, all I'm talking about is how can we prep our guys? Again, this is a lot of sports psychology. How can I prep our guys to be mentally ready to go to war game 7? This is not about scheme. It's about want to and will. And this will tell me a lot about the Minnesota Timberwolves team. Like, a coach shouldn't have to motivate you for this game. Like, I don't want to hear after the game, well, I didn't bring the energy today. No, get ready now. Bring the energy now. There's no excuses this game. If you can't get pumped up for this game, you don't know when this game is going to come back around. You got to be ready. No excuses. Start prepping now. The Timberwolves coaching staff, they've got to get in their guys' heads and start prepping now. And again, you're going to see that mental preparation during the game. If they get blown out in a game of this magnitude, speaking of the Minnesota Timberwolves, if they get blown out, then you know their mind wasn't right for the game and they didn't get prepped mentally for the game. That just shouldn't happen. You're men, you should fight. If they lose a close competitive game, then hats off to the world champion Denver Nuggets and Jokic. They just played a better game. But you got to show up. There's no excuses. The X factor, I think, in the game is going to be Mike Conley. Oh, his ability to play off the pick and roll and get others involved, especially Rudy Gobert. That pick and roll is pretty devastating. He can run that pick and dive with Rudy Gobert all day long because he can hit those gaps and score those runners, Mike Conley. So whoever's in that drop coverage, they've got to respect that. If they leave Rudy Gobert, usually Mike Conley starts to play above the rim, throwing those lobs to Rudy, and we all know Rudy can dunk. And then he runs that pick and roll with Karl Anthony Towns. Karl Anthony Towns, best shooting big man probably in the history of the league, can go pick and pop in certain scenarios, and those are 3 balls. When they can play that 2-man game, Conley and Karl Anthony Towns, boy, that could be deadly. And that's when Karl Anthony Towns usually shoots the ball pretty well. The one part of Karl Anthony Towns' game that I really necessarily don't like is when he tries to handle the ball and become a slasher, because he's always looking for the foul, and he doesn't have a lot of things in his bag where he can be a great finisher at the basket unless he's dunking the basketball. So that relegates him to 2-man game, pick and pop and shooting. The Denver Nuggets should get a big dose of that tomorrow night. Anthony Edwards should get a bunch of ISOs, and he should attack. I think sometimes he gets into this mindset where he wants to shoot the 3 ball a lot more than he should. He settles for the 3 ball. And we all know Anthony Edwards is a really good shooter from outside, but when that thing is not going, you've got to still be able to be engaged into the game and attack. Hit those gaps. Get some paint touches. Eat the paint. Because teams are already running a sort of triangle defense on you, person on the ball, 2 guys in the gaps, and so they're trying to hinder you from getting into the lane because they know everything's going to collapse. And now if you make the right reads, you're going to have shooters on the outside that can kill the Denver Nuggets. Huge. Another big thing in Game 7, I would not put Rudy Gobert much. I know there's going to be times where you're going to have to, but I wouldn't put Rudy Gobert on Jokic. One-on-one, Jokic can take him away from the basket as they put him in the high post. You've seen that multiple times during these games. I would keep Karl Anthony Towns on him. I would keep Naz Reid on him and let Rudy Gobert just roam and be the rim protector. Now, if he's that rim protector, that means somebody's going to be open on the perimeter. So scrambling is going to be huge. Contesting shots are going to be huge. Running guys off the 3-point line is going to be huge for the Minnesota Timberwolves. See, all of these things take effort. This is what Game 7s are all about. And I'm going to be looking for these things early in the game. How well are we moving? Are we moving with the sense of urgency? How hard are we playing? Are we pressuring the basketball? What are the matchups? Are we giving the Denver Nuggets second and third opportunities to score as they hit the offensive boards? These are all effort things. And you're going to see that early in the game. If the Timberwolves are there in the first quarter of that game with all those elements that I talked about, I think we got a shot. But if they come in and allow the environment to get to them, and allow the crowd to come into play and allow the Denver Nuggets to go on those runs. We're not closing out well and we're slow. And Rudy Gobert is a sieve and they're banging threes. It's going to be a tough night for the Minnesota Timberwolves. And although I was leaving them for dead a few days ago, this just feels like they got a pretty good shot, especially if they get off to a good start. This is going to show a lot about where Anthony Edwards is. We've seen him take over games before, but can he take over a game in Game 7 with everything on the line? Their basketball lives are on the line. We're going to see. 2 Game 7s on Sunday. The other Game 7 is Indiana versus New York. Indiana, who's a track meet the way they play, get up a lot of shots, get out in transition. New York Knicks like to slow it down and money it up. Tibbs, former coach of the Timberwolves, you know how he rolls. He's going to play about 7 guys, and they're going to play hard-nosed defense for the whole game. That'll be an interesting game as well. 2 Game 7s on Sunday. The NBA loves it. And all the conspiracy theorists out there saying, well, this is what they wanted. That's why they ref the games this way. Interesting. Be a big-time game. So root for the Minnesota Timberwolves, man. It's going to be, this could change the landscape of the franchise. You win this game. I don't think anyone, when we started the season, thought the Minnesota Timberwolves would be here. Arguably in the door of a Western Conference championship appearance with a chance to go to the NBA Finals. I don't think any analyst would have picked them to do that, but they're here. They're here. And I will be in front of my TV tomorrow, game time, with some popcorn, watching that game. And as soon as that game is over, expect for me to put something out. Recapping the game, telling you some things that I saw, telling you some things that I didn't see, and hopefully celebrating the Minnesota Timberwolves victory. Hit that like and subscribe button. We're close to 2,500 subscribers. You guys are doing it. Appreciate you taking the time to listen to me. This thing is growing and growing every single day. This is the UP, Unconventional Playbook. See you guys after the big game on Sunday. Peace.
Powered by Riverside.